In today's video, I'm going to share with you 3 examples about how to answer a behavioral question at Amazon that relate to conflict within a team context, and give you some hopefully interesting tips and tricks about the do's and don'ts while answering them. Also, of the 14 Amazon leadership principles, I'll touch upon 3 of them, that is ownership, learn and be curious, and earn trust. One of my clients are in the art gallery business, and they just opened their second art gallery geared towards more established artists, and therefore we set up a meeting with an arts critic to decide what was the best way to go with the new website. Now, the art critic had a very interesting position of making the website as big as possible and to try to accaparate as much information as possible. Hopefully this would also be picked up by Google's search engine and grow in reputation over time. Now, on the other hand, myself, I was not a big fan of the idea, and this is also because I was currently managing the website for the other gallery, so I knew that artists are not the best people to rely on when it comes to providing especially a lot of information, and mistakes could always arise when providing that information, so this would very much complicate the process and the overall communications process within a digital context. I also know by experience, by managing the other gallery for many years now, that the search engines is not that easy to rank high in a search engine just by adding ever more information about artists, and basically this was my point of view here. Now, long story short, the gallery owners took both of our points seriously, and we finally decided to start with something small, but keeping open the opportunity to add information on the website. So if an artist would provide more information, we should be able to handle this in a professional way. And by the way, the arts critic is my friend for around 5 years. Now, I believe the example is self-explanatory here, but I would like to highlight a few points here. Now, at first, notice that although this was a scene of conflict, I specifically mentioned in the end that we were actually all friends. So I find it's particularly important to make this, if applicable to your scenario, to ensure that you show the diplomatic version of yourself. The second important thing here is that when I emphasized my point of view, I ensured that it was based on previous experience, based on facts, and in fact, I also had the whole strategy here of presenting the fact that for the first gallery, arts gallery, it proved to be an inefficient process to add more information on the website. So that's why we finally chose to use as little information as possible and to move as quickly as possible. Again, it very much depends up to your specific situation, but notice here that none of this example has seriously damaged my reputation here. I did not blame anyone, and I did not try to sugarcoat anything. I just presented the situation as it was, and I didn't really focus too much on the conflict. But this could also be an interesting pitch for follow-up questions, because we were all friends, it all ended fine, so as long as you're careful to show the diplomatic version of yourself, you should be fine. I remember during a particular situation while managing a team of developers that one of them, particularly talented, couldn't accept the fact that the leader of the team was not as good as them, technically speaking. And what's interesting here is that I actually found out about this because I was regularly checking in with every member of my team to see whether if everything went well, and essentially I was curious about how the project was evolving at all times to avoid any types of misunderstandings or unforeseen delays. And in fact, by talking to them, I realized that they were angry, so I raised this issue to the team leader, and she explained to me that in fact, even if the developers is super talented, they do have some downsides, such as showing up late to work and not necessarily being engaged at any point in time in a project. So there are some tricks when it comes to his performance. So then we decided to together, all three of us, in a meeting and discuss these same things, and he somewhat agreed that delivering results on a consistent basis was even more important than being super talented for that specific project. And in fact, we also tested him as a team lead for another project, and in fact he didn't like it, and luckily enough, he went on to work with us for another 5 years, I think. Now, if in the previous example I gave you some tips about how to go about answering, now let me talk about some things to avoid here. And the first thing is that you should avoid being negative, avoid having an overall negative answer, because this will be actually the entry point for the follow-up questions, and it has a risk of spiraling downwards from then on. Another thing here is that no matter about the seniority of your role, don't even think of ending the example on a negative note. Although you might say, okay, but I must say it, and I must end it on something, but you must end it on something that emphasizes on your strengths always. This is a non-negotiable issue. And you'll find it out by practicing answering these types of behavioral questions. Now, also be very careful not to blame anyone here. The facts should just speak for themselves. If you start blaming for somebody, that will immediately trigger a serious flag in your behavior. So that will automatically make you less likable to work in a team, and we all know that we're not talking about an average company here, so they are only looking for high performance. So also something to avoid here is, even if you end it on a positive note, avoid giving examples such as when you stopped working completely with that project manager. It's not good, because that directly puts a shade on your ability to perform there, on your probability that you'll perform there, right? And also, if you talk about multiple failures, that negative attitude that I talked in the beginning, if you talk that you failed, you had negativity over and over and over again, that's again putting a serious sign of a question mark on your ability to deliver on a constant basis. I believe the best example to your question is to talk about my previous business venture, where me and my partner, a veteran in the HR industry, were in charge of developing an HR software as a service, and I was in charge of the technical aspect of things. I was in charge of designing and architecting the software in general. And one of the main challenges that I remember particularly well is that my business partner was very picky when it came to designing different screens with functionalities and wording there. So truth be said, here also our competitors were extremely picky about this. So in order to overcome this, I always ensured that I would provide always an early alpha version to my picky business partner, and they would take their time to provide me all their feedback, and then instead of going directly and showing them immediately after these were resolved, I took the time to iterate a few times more and also add a bit more customization there. So I would limit the probability of them asking over and over again for small enhancements, and this proved to be quite an efficient way to save time, and this helped us a lot to go a lot faster through our iterations and our live server updates. So the main reason why I showcased this example was because I wanted to show that I'm not a high conflict type of person. It's not my way or the highway. And also I wanted to showcase a bit that I'm likable when working with other people. And these are very important ingredients when working in a team and dealing with conflict in general. Also, if you would like to test yourself, here are some examples of other questions within this same topic. So as always, I hope you found this information useful, and thank you very much for watching.